Right. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of ThousandEyes, which means I'm responsible for pretty much anything you do not like about ThousandEyes. So if you have a list of complaints, make them now. And we talk a lot about signal and noise and separating signal from noise. And there isn't another better example than the signal and noise in this area here. So hopefully you're able to hear me and follow through this presentation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about ThousandEyes. Just show of hands. How many people know ThousandEyes? Right, that's good. So if you know ThousandEyes, we're going to tell you more. For those who don't know ThousandEyes, we're going to tell you a bit about ThousandEyes. And I always believe in this notion of we want to show more in real product than slides. So we have a few slides, but there's two highlights that you have to look forward to. One is Jason's going to show up, come up on stage and actually show you real data, real events, even including the outages that happened as recently as a couple weeks ago. And then we have a customer, Karen from EasyJet, who's going to share her experience. So those are the two highlights that I'm going to try to make sure we don't delay. So before we go into ThousandEyes, it's really around why, what's changed that is important. And I think the crux of this is we're living in a very different world where everything is becoming more and more fragmented. Apps are moving out, people are moving out, the enterprise perimeter is no longer a perimeter, it's a borderless network. That's the reality of what today's enterprise looks like. And if you think about digital experience, it's going across all these different elements. It's DNS, CDN, data centers, home environments. And traditional monitoring has been very focused on looking at what's going through a device. But as you think about the digital experience and the end-to-end chain, you don't control the devices anymore. And so we have this notion of a borderless enterprise and the fact that your responsibility of digital experience doesn't end where your purchases end. And what I mean by that is, you purchase routers and switches and all that, and that's the periphery typically, but that's not where your responsibility ends. So if you think about these trends, really, cloud is the new data center, SaaS apps like Office 365, the new app stack, home is the new office. This has especially been accelerated over the last 2 or 3 years, and this really makes the internet the new network. And what is really incredible is the amount of dependencies that are external to your environment that are becoming a fabric of what you are responsible for. When this happens, you obviously lose visibility and control. And what is really critical is this massive blind spot that is being created that you're responsible now to manage, right? Is it DNS? Is it CDN? Where is it breaking? And I'll tell you what, we started the company after 7 years of research, doing a PhD in internet, and we thought we knew every way the internet would break, and 13 years later, there's still new ways people break the internet. There's still new ways people break systems. So the possibility of scenarios is near infinite. And I'll share one quick story before I hand it off to Jason. When we moved to our first proper office as a startup in San Francisco, we started in 2010. 2020, we were acquired by Cisco. We'll talk about that in a bit. But when we moved to our first office, this was in 2011 in San Francisco, the lights would go off at 7 p.m. to save energy. It's a culture of saving energy. And at 7 p.m., we had to pick up the phone, like a physical line that was attached to the wall. We would pick up that phone, dial a number, and enter a 4-digit code to turn the lights back on. That was the system to have the lights back on, which makes sense. For about 7 days, it made sense for us because we were working till 9 p.m. And then my co-founder said, this is stupid. We can't do this. We have to automate it. And so he wrote a script with Twilio. Are you familiar with Twilio? The API automation for SMS, etc. So he wrote a script with Twilio. And at 6:59, we would run this cron job to automate the whole process of turning the lights on, which worked for about a week. And then the lights go off. And if you were a normal person, when the lights go off, the first thing you would do is you would walk up, pick up the phone, and turn it on. But we were debugging the code in the dark, trying to figure out what broke. And what we found was that Twilio was fine, our script was fine, but Twilio was hosted on Amazon in the East Coast data center, and there was a power outage because of a storm. So because of that, Twilio actually had an issue. As a result, our script was not working. And think about that. Our lights in our office in San Francisco were controlled by an Amazon outage on the East Coast of the data center. So that's the new reality of what you live in, and that is what we're going to talk about. We are in this business of really helping you understand every digital experience, no matter where the boundaries are of what you own and what you don't own. And there's two things that we can promise to you. One is help you see beyond your environment, not just from a network, but an application experience standpoint. And the second is to help you collaborate better with third parties. And this is one of the things that is very unique to ThousandEyes. If you think about every SaaS company that you may rely on, pretty much every one of them uses ThousandEyes. So if you see an issue with a Salesforce, you can actually share data with them. So that is the promise. And in order to see this in action, I want to invite Jason Warfield to the stage, who's going to share a little bit more and show you how the product actually works.
Thank you, Mohit. Cisco Live EMEA. So I had to wait 3 years since the ThousandEyes acquisition to be here. So you can't tell by the big smile on my face, I'm incredibly excited to be here. What I want to walk you through before I dive into the actual demo is our 3 primary use cases. And my role here at ThousandEyes, I lead the solution engineering and adoption engineering teams. And we work with customers closely every day to really show and prove the value of the technology. And it really centers around 3 use cases focused on the first being what we call customer digital experience. So think about any internet-facing, revenue-generating, or citizen-facing service, helping you assure a consistently great experience no matter where in the world they're accessing that service and no matter when they're accessing that service. And the way we do that is by leveraging our over 600 points of presence around the world to help you understand the user journey, accessing the service, all the different providers that they traverse across the internet that delivers that service, as well as the ecosystem that supports delivering the service, whether that be content delivery networks or the actual data centers in which the application is hosted. That could be on-premise, that could be in the cloud, it could be a hybrid deployment, but having visibility into that full ecosystem to allow you to consistently deliver great service to your customers. The second is around workforce digital experience. So how many people here work at least part-time remote? So workforce digital experience really helps you assure productivity for your employees no matter where they choose to work. Part of that is making sure that they can access the applications and the services they need to do their jobs on a day-to-day basis. But that also means that we extend that visibility down to the last mile in the local network on which they're connected to. Because a lot of times the issue is not with the service or even the network transit, it's in the home, the coffee shop, on the plane, wherever that user may be working. And it can be very challenging to really support remote workers without the visibility down to both the service and their user experience accessing the service, as well as the full ecosystem, including the local network in which they're connected to. The last major use case focuses on what we call enterprise digital experience. One example is as our customers have been reopening offices around the world, giving them data they can use to assure when employees come in and they work in an office that they'll have a seamless, consistent, and great experience accessing the internal and SaaS applications they use. Another use case is focused around SD-WAN. And when you think about SD-WAN, really being able to leverage ThousandEyes across the full SD-WAN lifecycle. As you're selecting which service providers to use at a given location, using data to select the best service provider for that location. As you deploy, having visibility into the performance of the services being delivered across your SD-WAN environment. And then once you have deployed and you're in production, being able to both assure the productivity of your users, as well as being able to leverage the data and the analytics to actually predict which path is best for a given site to optimize performance. So those are our 3 primary use cases, and as Mohit mentioned, let's show them to you in action with a demo. So the first demo we're going to look at is something that's been top of mind for our customers over the last couple of weeks. How many people in here were impacted in some way, shape, and form by the Microsoft outage on January 25th? So let's walk you through the visibility that ThousandEyes provides in the context of what we're looking at here first is a synthetic test that we have set up running to our SharePoint, Microsoft SharePoint. And what this is essentially a page load test, which help us understand the user experience. We're running this test from 22 locations around the world, or points of presence, leveraging our cloud agents so that we have visibility from different countries and cities globally. And what this allowed us to do is, when the issue occurred, right now everything is green, everything looks great, users are able to access SharePoint and other services. However, if we move forward to 7:10 UTC, we can see that at this point, immediately, users around the world were having an issue. So, the first thing we understand is there's a definite impact from a user perspective, not being able to access the services, the Microsoft 365, and as you'll see, other services. And really the question that we help answer in real time is this an application issue or a network issue? Is it a issue you own and can control and can fix yourself, or is it one you need to work with a provider? And then what's the root cause? So one of the things we can see here is users were having issues from everything from trying to resolve the host name, trying to connect to the services, trying to get information back from the services, really all the way through the HTTP stack. So oftentimes this is pretty indicative of a network problem. And we were able to validate that very quickly, or immediately, I should say, where we were able to see what we're looking at now at the top is the end-to-end loss for all the sites in aggregate. So we know for a fact we're seeing a lot of network loss. So we're highly confident this is a network issue at this point. We can look at loss per site if we wanted to do that. And when I talked about ThousandEyes being able to dynamically understand the user journey, what I mean by that is here we're representing user experience for users in Tel Aviv. On the right-hand side is the actual SharePoint service that we're providing visibility into. And every time we run our synthetic tests, we capture the path, or in this case, multiple paths the user actually takes to access that service. So this is how we're able to quickly identify any issues and the root cause of those issues. So we certainly see there's an impact in the Microsoft network, which is highlighted in this case by this red circle. But in this instance, we know this was actually a BGP-related problem. So if we scroll down and look at our BGP view, what this is really highlighting is the dotted lines are showing all the routes that were withdrawn. So essentially, at 7:10, we identified that almost all of the BGP routes that Microsoft had established were withdrawn. And that's what caused a direct impact on the users and really started the chain of events that led to this outage. And if we simplify this a little bit and just look at it from one monitor, it's very interesting what we saw. So in this case, we're looking at this from one BGP monitor's perspective. We see that the dotted line was the direct path between Tiggy and Microsoft. That was withdrawn, and we see that the path actually was extended, and we added a provider, work online in between. However, what was most interesting is if we look at the actual path changes, we can see an incredible amount of flapping where routes were introduced, withdrawn, introduced, withdrawn, introduced, withdrawn. And that's why you saw there was intermittent ability for some users to access the service throughout the outage. But because of all of these BGP route changes, users weren't able to consistently connect and actually interact with the services. And this went on for roughly an hour and a half. And I won't go through the whole time period, but I'll show you just visually how this looked, where we see routes withdrawn, routes added, routes withdrawn. And then about an hour in, hour and a half in, almost 2 hours in, we see that, let me go back one period, we see that the BGP routes were restored for the most part. and then we start to see the services from a user perspective improve, and more users able to access the service. So this is the type of visibility that ThousandEyes provides for any digital service. And all this information is dynamically captured really from two pieces of information: the URL for the service, and in this case, the 22 cloud agents or 22 agents that you want to gain visibility from. And that could be a combination of cloud agents, which are over 600 points of presence around the world that we control, or agents you deploy inside networks you can control. The one other thing I'll highlight is, as part of this outage, it wasn't just the Microsoft services that were impacted, but it was also other services that were hosted in Azure. So you see LinkedIn, SuccessFactors, SAP, and Netflix. All right, so the last demo I want to highlight focuses on hybrid work. So here what we're doing is providing visibility into end user experience, accessing digital services from anywhere they work. And what I want to highlight is a couple things. One, we have a number of different users. They're in the middle. And there's a number of services they're accessing, one of which is Office 365. So we can see Office 365, the experience is a lot worse than all the other services. So let's focus on that as part of this demo. Filter out everything else. And then what we see here is, for Sean Eustace in particular, he's having an issue accessing Office. I can see on the left that Sean, I can see his network connection in his home looks good. He's connected via Wi-Fi. Gateway looks good. But between his gateway and the service, there's 90% loss. So there's certainly an issue in the transit network in between. And being able to then drill into the network layer, being able to see the path that Sean's taking from his home, and then being able to identify, in this case, there's an issue inside the Microsoft network. You could identify the root cause of the problem, tell Sean, yes, we know you're having an issue. It's related to an issue in the Microsoft network. We'll reach out to Microsoft and get back to you. So let me wrap up there from a demo perspective, because what I want to do is transition into one wrap-up slide and then my favorite part of the session. So in terms of the actual business impact that ThousandEyes delivers to companies, and this is from a economic impact study we did, from an ROI perspective, being able to deliver 173% ROI, and a lot of that is driven by what you see here in that second box, having less than a 6-month payback period. The reason why, we can very quickly and easily get going in terms of getting the service deployed, getting the ThousandEyes adopted, and delivering and showing value. And literally, from the first day of a deployment, you're immediately seeing value in terms of the visibility that we're delivering. In terms of productivity, being able to help increase productivity over 50%, and a large part due by being able to reduce the time it takes to identify and resolve outages. We've had customers literally have over 100 people on a conference bridge, internal, external providers, trying to figure out the root cause of a problem. They've looked in ThousandEyes. They immediately identified what the issue was, whether it's CDN or otherwise. 90+% of the people were able to drop off the phone, and they could work with the provider to resolve the actual issue. And then being able to produce both productivity and the impact in terms of revenue delivered back to the business. So with that, let me introduce Karen Bullen, Head of Technology, Networking, and Hosting at EasyJet.
Hi, Jason.
Hi, Karen. So I'm sure most people here know who EasyJet is.
I hope so.
For the few who may not, could you please tell us a little bit about EasyJet as well as your role?
Sure, okay, yes. So EasyJet, if you don't know, is a European airline. So one of our strapline is making low-cost travel easy. So that's what we're here to do. We are here to to get our customers to the places that we need to do. So my role at EasyJet is the head of networking and hosting. So I'm accountable and responsible for anything we host, whether that's in data center or in the cloud, as we transform and move more to the cloud space. Connectivity. So as you mentioned, how our crew, how our end users and our campus sites connect, but also around our remote working, as we are a hybrid company in terms of workforce. And then what's more important here, we've also introduced observability and AI ops as well as part of our full platform service.
And could you share with us how EasyJet's changed since you joined the company?
Yes, so I have a background in infrastructure and operations for the last 20 years, and I joined EasyJet in 2021. And we were just very much looking at transforming these services that I've spoken about in terms of cloud and hosting and observability. So it's very much looking at putting down the foundations, doing their transformation, and then looking at that innovation piece going on. And so we were very much looking about, in terms of business value, the going to cloud, bringing that agility, in how we can be faster to market and provide those services to our end customers in a much more agile and in a better way, providing that value for our customers.
And how have you been able to address and accomplish this?
So as I said, we mentioned in terms of, it was back in the summer of last year, as I said, we were just laying down the foundations in terms of observability. And we worked with yourselves, and it's great to have done that. So we looked at how we can get ourselves ready for summer flying 2022. And our enterprise stack of monitoring tools wasn't really enough. Yeah, so we wanted to look about how we can, as you'd mentioned, in terms of as we're moving to cloud, as we're using direct internet access, having those pieces, bringing them all together to have that full stack observability. So we partnered with yourselves, not doing a massive rollout. We looked at our critical business services for flying and also for selling tickets, because obviously that's the heart of EasyJet. And we partnered with yourselves and were able to roll out ThousandEyes, so from an enterprise point of view and from our endpoint agent point of view, to roll out the ThousandEyes across the business services that we wanted to concentrate on.
And where would you say you've seen the most value from ThousandEyes?
Well, absolutely. It's been tremendous in terms of our journey working with yourselves. Very much in terms of what you're saying, in terms of the headline straps you had earlier. It's around reducing that MTTR, so that the reducing that time to resolve or even identify potential incidents, and that's what we've been very much looking at. So it just relieves that. So rather than spending hours trying to go through and find out where the root cause is, we are now sort of focusing much more on what the business value really, in terms of rather than our engineering spending hours and hours on incident calls and, like you say, multiple people coming to those incidents, we now can focus those engineering capabilities in providing new services for the business and therefore our customers.
And what are some of the lessons you've learned during this transformation, both positive as well as constructive?
So in terms of transformation, yes, so we are moving away from the network, but going through a data center. We're very much moving to the cloud, being the center of our network, and using the cloud services. So I think that's really key to say, because that's going to add value and what we're going to do for our business. But again, it's not a case of a big bang rollout, right? We were really concentrating on the value add, doing that proof of concept with the critical services that we knew that we needed for being able to fly, being able to sell those tickets to our customers. So it wasn't a big bang approach in terms of our rollout. And there's more to do, yeah? So we just laid down those foundations last year. So we're working with you to do more in that transformation. But then it's then moving across to innovation and that continual service improvement and optimization. That's where we need to get to in the future.
Yeah, it sounds like an agile approach and continuous.
Very much an agile approach, exactly, yes.
I love it. And last question. So looking forward, What are some of your strategic priorities for EasyJet?
Yeah, so as I said, if we take using ThousandEyes or observability as a whole, it's very much we've gone through that reactive phase, very much in that more proactive way of looking at, and now we're looking at more predictive, right? So we want to spot things before they happen. We want to be able to detect those anomalies, etc. So that's very much what we're looking forward to. Very much looking at the full stack of observability and AI ops. That's what we're looking forward to next.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you for joining us here today on stage, and thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you very much, Jason.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mohit, I know I said this was my favorite part of the session, but I love your presentation too. So let me turn it back over to you.
Thank you. So we're going to do a quick wrap here, but let me capture a few things that are critical. I mentioned earlier, it's been a 2.5-year journey inside Cisco, and one of the things that has been really exciting is ThousandEyes decodes the internet and these hybrid environments, and it threads through every part of Cisco's business. So these are some of the core areas we're working in. On full stack observability, you hear a lot about that. We're working closely with AppDynamics on that. There's a lot of work going on hybrid work to support remote employees, work from anywhere, working with WebEx and AnyConnect and the likes. And then there's a bunch of activities around just the WAN edge, secure access, et cetera, where we're doing a bunch of stuff with Cisco networking as well. Now, one of the announcements we have at this Cisco Live is the support for open telemetry, OTel. And this is one of the first kinds from the data we have. So it adds a new data set to everything you're building on your observability practice and takes away all this bespoke integrations that you have to do. So we're excited about this. I think this is going to be big. And the first manifestation of this is our support for full stack observability. This is where we have a really powerful integration with AppDynamics. We're able to really exchange data between the network and app tiers and really be able to correlate these things together. So this thing will only get better, and I encourage you guys to go and check out the demos. There's various pods. There's the ThousandEyes pod, there's AppDynamics, and there's also the FSO pod, so please do check it out. And then finally, something really exciting, and this is where the power of ThousandEyes coming inside Cisco is really, really powerful. When we think about ThousandEyes, for 10 years, we basically were building this picture of what's happening on the internet. And in the internet, you can't predict outages in a lot of scenarios because you have a beaver chewing on cables in Canada that takes down parts of the internet, or an undersea cable being bitten or cut by bitten by a shark or cut by a boat. So there's outages you can't predict, but you can see. That's the power of ThousandEyes. But what we have realized is collaborating with groups inside Cisco, we can actually learn from behaviors within your local environments. And WAN Insights is about one of these where you can understand past behavior and be able to forecast certain kinds of issues, recommend optimal paths. This the demo for this particular capability is available on the ThousandEyes demo booth. So please go check it out if you want to do more here, but more coming from a network AI ops standpoint. This is a code that we captured. I'll flash it for a second from someone who was using WAN Insights, and it was really helpful to find the optimal default paths without any configuration hassles. Finally, here's what I'd like you to take away from this session. Our entire journey is around helping you control every digital experience, no matter what. And so if you think about issues that you're having that may not be with a specific server, it's just general digital experience issues, and you want to figure out what's going on, that's where our power lies. So definitely check us out for that. And this is my last slide, a few action items. By the way, if you want to check out, a very simple thing to do with ThousandEyes is thousandeyes.com/outages. If you go to that portal, thousandeyes.com/outages, you will see a live view of what's happening right now. If there's a key network outage or a key SaaS outage, that's one way to look at it. But please check out the website, check out the booths that we have here, explore the website. We have a lot of blogs on past outages. We do actually always share live information anytime there's a major disruption, so you can subscribe to the blog and you can get all this information. And finally, talk to your Cisco rep. I know we all like human conversations again since we're getting back, so hopefully you can use the time to do that. I appreciate the time. Thank you, everyone, and look forward to working with all of you. Cheers.